My name is Dan Kirkpatrick. Today we'll be going over my case study for experimental sound at Morley College. My student number is 102505550. Today we'll be briefly looking at multi-instrumentalism and the capability to use music technology in order to further the capabilities of musical live performance. First, we'll be taking a look at the instruments used, the acoustic capabilities and the extended range capabilities, and how we can imply different instruments for that. We'll be looking at the musical context in which they're performing by studying each and every single functionality of the technology they're using. Then we'll go into the ultimate setup of what can be expanded upon with this technology. We'll be looking at the ultimate arrangement. We'll also be looking at the normal structure of the music to integrate live performance. We'll be looking and taking apart each and every different musical detail of that performance, and we'll be looking at the resources by which artists can use and the mediums and platforms by which they can use to further their careers. The arrangement of each sequencer correlating to the genre in which it is similar to, and so we can go into these in detail now. So first, let's take a look at their performance. This is French Kiwi Juice and Masego. This is their setup at Red Bull Studios. Here we can see that he will switch from guitar to bass guitar, and then he's using there the APC 40 to switch between tracks, muting tracks and triggering other ones. This is the way he can layer. Masego's just used the Yamaha DTX, which he can use as a drum pad, MIDI drum pad, tabletop. They've got both two saxophones. Let's go into this into detail now. The setup. So these guys have the guitars, the two saxophones, alto or tenor. We have normal drums, MIDI tabletop drum, of course, as mentioned. We've got the Boss 505 loop pedal, which is used for vocals and for as a tabletop beatboxing looper. It's similar to the other series of the Boss loop pedals, except it isn't a foot pedal and isn't just for instrumental use, for like acoustic pickups like guitars and etc. This is the APC 40 separates the layers. As I said, you've got pianos, you've got synthesizers, and they're all used on certain banks. You've got the bass guitar, etc. It's an all-in-one take. So let's quickly go into how they would use a drum sequencer. So going into this, you can see that they have accents on anything that is under on the beat of the sequenced part. So here we have that the open hi-hats are going to be accented on the two. So here we have cymbals, we have closed hats, accents, we have hi-hats, mid-toms, snare drums, rim shots, low toms, etc, bass drum. So this is just like any normal music whereby everything is notated, except we're limited by the quantized beats in which the sequencer needs to correlate to play the track again and again and again. This is in particular funk, and there are many different styles by which you can use sequencers for as a bass drum for sequence live performances. So here we can see the arrangement, which is particular to rap and pop and all sorts of things. Everything rests upon, you know, the 16 bars, the 4 quatrains and the 3 verses. Here's the typical pop structure. We can see that it goes beyond that into its little parts from 4 to 8 bars to 16. And there's always an intro and outro, a bridge, etc., etc. These are simple, strong structures that are used generally for these live setups. And here we can see that, you know, they've got to market these performances once they're done, because, you know, it's a very catchy trend of being multi-instrumental, etc., etc. So without further ado, let's go into the processes behind extending these live setups. And for some of these things, they have been sponsored by the artists as well. Like the aerophone has been sponsored by Messigo. He's promoted its value, etc., etc., as a saxophone player to digital saxophone. Let's go further into this. So first we'll do some product analysis. So here we have the TC Helicon Touch Live, and so on the back here we can see that you can add in your male and female inputs for microphones. You've got your outputs, you've got your MIDI synchronized to synchronize tempo, etc., etc. The Touch Live I use to connect to a piezoelectric acoustic pickup in my barrel of the clarinet. I then can use different vocal effects processing techniques in order to create harmony, such as doubling up or having a higher pitched tone or a lower pitched tone on top of what I'm already playing acoustically, and it does this very well. Great for live performance. Now we'll go on to the FA08 by Roland, and in this we can see that it's a workstation, and it's even got an integrated screen there. So what we have is tons of different sound banks of supernatural sounds, which means they can play to the virtuosity near enough to that of an acoustic instrument, as far as we can emulate, at least virtually. Now going on, we have foot pedals here that are Bluetooth, and for live performance these are quite important, because we have someone who plays a vast amount of complex material and reads sheet music for that in performance. Turning a page is just absolutely not acceptable, because then you're losing, you know, unless you're doing it within the breaks needed, then it's just absolutely something that's a misdemeanor. So the good thing about that is it's Bluetooth and it connects to a tablet on a stand, and with this it means that you can easily turn your page when referring to material for repertoire in live performances. We have the Elite DVS mixing console, which is something that is a great piece of hardware that connects to turntables. These are particular turntables in kind, but the DVS is very similar to that of other products that are DVSs, because these have all the inputs needed for and outputs for the other console, part of the console. Now on here we can see, if you go into its parameters, that it's got the normal hot cue functions, it can sample, it has the capability for effects on the low band to high band to mid-range frequencies. It's even got the crossfaders as well. And so for the actual turntable mixing console for vinyl records, we can see here that this is not an ordinary mixing deck. And so the reloop turntable is capable of pitch play control and MIDI feedback. So what that means is that it can connect to MIDI through its pitch play. Its pitch play can change the pitch of any analog track on the vinyl, and so the audio becomes very much more manipulatable for live performances, and it can connect to any MIDI console, so that when you're playing your MIDI console, it will refer also to the analog pitch. Very great capability, unseen and almost unheard of until a few years ago in the mass market scene. Now, we have many different workstations here, but for this one in particular, we're going to be analyzing a range of different products, and these are all-in-ones for their various facets. This one in particular is the Jupiter. Now, the Jupiter is a collection of so many different real-time synthesizer sounds on an engine, and the Jupiter is mainly for synthesizers. Its parameters are very vast, and they are again linked to supernatural sounds, which can be also sound banks shown on the Integra 7 by Roland. The JDX-A is an expansion of the JDX-I, and it contains many parameters like drum sequencers, effects processing on board, and the System 8 is much like that of its predecessor. The System 1 has many parameters to do with synthesizer control, such as the oscillations, to do with different frequencies, the triangle saw, so you have the different types of sound design of the wave. There are so many parameters to go into. I'm not going to go into them now. And as we can see on the back, the Roland setup is integral to the whole live system setup. So most things that are controlled by MIDI can be connected to each other. So you could have all of these things connected in one setup, and so the timbres, the sequencers, the effects processing, the synthesizer parameter control, the audio inputs, audio outputs, MIDI outputs, everything can be synchronized to each other, and can be easily switchable, just like in FKJ's performance. These things can tie into each other. Now, the Akai MPC-X is more to do with producing, but can be used in live performance setup as well. If you're a really good finger drummer and sampler, this is great for creating tracks post-production, pre-production, but doing this in a live setup is also something that could be viable. You could choose your sounds and link it to a MIDI drum kit if you didn't like the idea of it being in a standalone console and wanted to expand to actual instrumental play there as well. Now, the Roland DJ808 is a way of expanding your amount of inputs you can put into multifunctionality for DJ decks. These are MIDI controller decks, which uses its frequency, and then you can upload any track in collaboration with the software of Serato DJ. And in detail, we can see here that it's got drum pads. It's not just got the drum pads, but it's got 4 crossfader channels, as well as a microphone that can be inputted. Now, going on to things here, we have the MX1, which is a live processing console. You can connect most of your audio in the Roland series through the USBs, which is a very high quality sound when it comes to the audio. Also, this can be a good sequencer for live effects, and also you can change each channel on here to show the controlled parameters. You can change the volume here, You can change the even the sequencer to be on shuffle mode so that it's slightly late, slightly shuffled. And so on the back of this console here, we can start to gain an idea of the equipment of the Integra 7. Now the Integra 7 is all of those sound banks mostly that are integrated into the hardware of those instruments, those real-time supernatural instruments that we've just gone over. All of the sounds can be put into the one sound module, and so you can connect most hardware to this module and use them for supernatural sounds. Going on to the TR8, this is a drum sequencer. And so that is what we input the notes into, the rhythms into, etc., etc., when we're looking at stuff like that. So let's go out of this, and so I'm going to quickly and briefly go over all the possibilities here. So the Aerophone, a digital wind synthesizer, let's go over that, the DJ808, the Akai MPC, the Helicon Touch Live for vocal effects, the Jupiter 8, the FA08, and then as extra I wanted to take a look on this overall picture that, you know, the range is important as well, because if you want to be virtuous in any performance and have composed complex music yourself, then looking at the range is something that will be quite a good facet for you to have. Now, I know that if I wanted to have a violin, I would be limited to my treble clef to certain range and certain parameters on my 4 strings. But with this is a Barbara pickup on a violin that has the extended range of 7 strings. This has the capability to sound like the range of a cello, the range of a viola, and the range of violins, all in one. So if we're looking at extending things, which is what new products and new product lines of every single series keeps coming out with new technology of, in the same way we can try to adapt by building compelling amount of intrinsic musical elements to our instruments, and this acoustic conundrum is something that is quite important. So another, doing research about your setup is important, using these mediums, doing research on your funding so you can get help with events organizers to actually do these live events processing. One thing I did was going through Eventbrite, and I actually did a live multi-instrumental and multi-technology performance myself at Hackney Community Centre. So, you know, these things are possible, and you can extend your networking capabilities through freelancers and look at this as an actual business application, you know. Also here, we're quickly gonna go into here, we've got different styles which we can look at, going into how these different things interplay in the arrangement. We've got the order of different things and all the planning that went into my live performance, and here we can go in further into that. So we have, you know, the sample, the hot cues, all of these things can be integrated, you see, into a structure of a song, incorporating even acoustical instrumental elements and also music technology as live processing instruments. Thank you. My student number is 102505550. Thanks for watching.